Today I'm going to take the Among Us Impostor and try and recreate that in real life. For this build, you'll need foam floor mats, craft foam, contact cement, paint, brushes, buckles, a box fan, or just time, I don't know your schedule, safety gear, sanding tools, scissors, razor pens, and a box cutter. So to achieve this, essentially I'm going to need to make a fake torso that's also wearable. I'm just going to build it. There's no way I can describe this with any sort of clarity. I'm going to start with this chest armor template that I made. I'll make that available, linked down below in the video description, but I'm going to have it transferred onto something a bit more professional than, cornflakes. Gonna make the majority of this out of foam floor mats, so bear with me while I cut off the puzzle pieces. Or don't, because, magic of editing. I traced the template onto the foam and flipped it over to get a full armor piece. Then I cut those out with the razor pen that I'm continually sharpening on that sharpening stone there. Although you can use scissors. I just find that when I'm cutting curves, scissors often leave this clamping impression on your piece inside the outlines of your cut. Did that make sense? When it was separated from the mat, I trimmed an inch off of the bottom just because I wanted the top part of the mouth to open a little bit wider. I want more surface area to scrunch up. But also, I just don't want to sand this. And a lot of this is going to depend on how tall you are, so adjust these proportions as you deem necessary. Then I took the scrap foam left over from my alien costume build and cut it to be symmetrical. This is a different type of EVA foam. I got it in Canada. I think it was from Gorilla Store. Anyway, all it is just a more flexible type of EVA foam that better lends itself to frequently changing its shape as the mouth opens and closes. That'd be a lot harder to do with the denser floor mats. I smoothed out some of those corners with my rotary tool, made a quick trace of it for the templates later, and marked out where the center would be so that I'd know how it would all line up. Then I took the upper chest plate piece and heated it up with my heat gun. When it was hot, I pressed it into the same colander from before, and then weighted it down while it cooled. A more appropriate weight for this would be a bowling ball because it already has that rounded shape and is absurdly heavy, but I don't bowl often enough to own my own, so instead I substituted that weight with just whatever I happen to have lying around. I made the back plate the same way as the front plate. Oh, just so you know, it's better to do these traces with highlighter or pencil as opposed to Sharpie, because those are much less likely to show through your paint job later. Although it doesn't matter so much on the back plate, because that's gonna be nearly completely covered up with the backpack eventually. Next, I glued clips to the plates underneath the armholes. That ended up not being strong enough because those attachment points undergo a lot of stress while putting the costume on, so I ended up adding pieces of foam that were contact cemented to make them more secure. I also widened the neck hole just a bit to accommodate my head. Those are the three largest pieces of this build, and now that they're done, I'm going to start cementing them together. Contact cement has this unusual property in that rather than just applying it and then sticking it together, you have to apply it to both surfaces and then wait between 11 and 15 minutes, depending on how heavily you applied it, before you can actually stick the two pieces together. So in between, while I waited for them to dry, I worked on the teeth. These are made out of scrap white craft foam. Some of those are just 8x11 sheets, which you can get at any hobby store for around $1, and there's definitely enough surface area in there to do all the teeth that you'll need for this project. But I found those to be kinda two-dimensional, so I also made some out of scrap white floor mats left over from my original Among Us build. Or was it the Stormtrooper build? Or the droid build? I don't know. It's not like I'm categorizing my scraps, guys. Although, I am totally categorizing my scraps. Just not by build. By size and color, of course. Next, I applied the glue to the inside of the mouth. This will create a little bit of depth as opposed to just attaching them straight to the lip. Also, it'll help make it easier for you to hide the teeth once the mouth is closed. Hey Jake, what's with all the Among Us videos? I don't know. Maybe for once the hot new trend is a video game based on my favorite sci-fi movies? But what about Star Wars? Star Wars is fantasy. Yeah, I'm that guy. The stomach mouth effect is right out of John Carpenter's The Thing, which if you haven't seen, you should totally check out. It's fun for the whole family. Don't read any reviews, just pop that in right after dinner. Especially if you're a dog person, you'll never look at huskies the same way again. Dun, dun. Yup, that's my ear. That's my ear. Please don't assimilate it. When that was done, I glued the rest of the harness buckles in place. I temporarily taped those together just to relieve the tension, trying to pull them apart while it sets. And then I let it air out overnight. That's not always necessary, but I just didn't want to take the chance. While that was airing out, I threw together a jaw, which was actually much easier than the top piece because it only has to bend along one axis. It doesn't really need to be dished. Still heated it up just to bend it easier though. This is going to lie just above the waistband and for the most part not move, kind of like a belt. Like like one of those oversized wrestling championship belts. And then I glued on the teeth one by one, same as the last time. As I set that aside, I became concerned about the seam on the chest plate busting open under stress, so I cemented a strip of thin craft foam over it just to strengthen it. The next day, after it had aired out, I did a test fitting. I had to widen the neck hole even more, which is far more difficult now that the two pieces are together, but I was able to accomplish it with box cutters and my sanding tool. Normally I wouldn't do this because it's not necessary, but I have to take a 20-minute break, and this takes 20 minutes to dry. But honestly, if I start painting at the opposite side of this and work my way up, by the time I get there, it will be dry. I'm just gonna do a quick heat seal, which makes sense right here. Not so much on this type of foam because it, like, when it seals up, it's releasing oxygen, or not necessarily oxygen, just air. And there's already very little air pockets in here as it is. But I really don't have the resources to go out and buy more paint. So, you know, this is taking me 30 seconds and might save me a layer of paint, so I'm gonna do it. When I was satisfied with it, I painted it. Normally I would seal it in Plastidip first, but I'm out of white Plastidip, and I'm trying to be smart with the patron money. So instead I'm gonna be doing the painting using acrylic paint left over from other projects. Which is only gonna work because in order to film the whole thing, you gotta be so far away that the brush strokes sort of blend together and you can't really see them. I'm gonna start with a base coat of white to even out the differently colored foam parts, and then a top coat of blue so that there's zero or at least very limited deviation between the shade of blue on the different sections that were originally different colored foam. I might even change this in post to red or green or whatever color matches the jumpsuit that I have on hand. You can paint yours whatever color you want. All that I'm doing here is trying to use up the supplies I have on hand so as not to waste any of the patrons' money. On that note, this is a good time for the scroll. These names scrolling by are my patrons. They're the people who make these videos possible, because most people don't realize that the amount of work that goes into making multiple prop and costume builds a month is equivalent to a full-time job. And it just wouldn't happen without the support of my patrons. So thanks guys and gals, I really can't thank y'all enough. So now that these are all painted, in order to accelerate the dry time, I set them up next to a box fan. When that dried, I ran fishing line through the belly? Sure, through the belly, which is like the upper lip of the mouth. Belly on a human, mouth on a monster. I'm using fishing line here because it's hard to see, and I know I'm gonna need to run wire at least partially on the outside of this costume. However, being both lightweight and hard to see makes it very difficult to work with, so you're gonna need to weigh it down with something. These are my 1, 2, 3 docs. Get it? I hope my subscribers appreciate that joke because it took over an hour of chopping up popsicle sticks, and I'm sure all the new people get that. Then I ran the fishing line through the costume to my hands, where I held them securely using key rings. I hid this rigging beneath my clothing. Under the suit hard pieces, I wore a black shirt to make the opening look hollow. That's sort of the best that you can do in real life without, resorting to walking around with a mirror in your chest. Alternatively, if you're making a fan film, then you can wear a green shirt and replace the interior with a more cavernous looking throat in post. And that's how you horrify small children. You're welcome, future therapists. Hey, thanks for watching, everybody. If you want to build this yourself, then templates are available in my Etsy store, link below. They can also be used to make just a spacesuit torso section. I did get questions about how I made the original one that wasn't really outlined in my space helmet build from way back when, and that's essentially how I did it. Once again, I want to thank the patrons. This video only happened because of them. Their support has allowed me to build countless awesome props and costumes over the years, such as the ones you're seeing on screen right now. I think. I can't see what you're seeing just because of how I edit. There are no keyboard shortcuts. But you can. Hope there's nothing embarrassing in there. If you're interested in joining them and supporting the channel, then you can check out the links in the description down below for patron channel services. Anything you can pledge goes towards improving the quality of the videos, the props, and the shop equipment, which I do need to get around to replacing because I have like half of my studio lights have fallen apart. And allowing me to put together bigger and more exciting projects for you on the channel. Anyway, if you enjoy my content but are unable to support me, then you can still help out by hitting the like button, subscribe, and the bell icon to be notified of when I upload in the future. Because, I say every Tuesday, but the reality is it's impossible to get paint to dry on any sort of schedule. Alright, happy crafting, red is sus, hail Hydra, see you later. Nope. There we go. Okay, note to self. Buy better fishing line. I have to do so much to the shot in post. Just don't want to have to do a primarily CG one, I've replaced the fishing line with wire. And that means that I have to use the wire removal tool on top of everything else I gotta do this in post. The glasses don't fit in the helmet, by the way. I have contacts somewhere.